And here's the next Python tutorial on classes and OOP. So what's a class in programming? Think of a class as a kind of structure or union that holds and encapsulates behavior and attributes or properties, okay? It kind of holds your stuff together semantically and programmatically. And perhaps the best way is just to start with an example. You remember the previous lessons, we always used programming languages. And this time I will stick to this example and define a class called language. A class has a predefined method which is called init. And it is written like this. I said method, but you could say, isn't this a function? A method is nothing else than a function that is defined in a class. And therefore it is called method. But think of it as a function. Okay, this function init has parameters, and let's say a language needs a name, and we also want to know if this language is interpreted or compiled. So when I create an object for this class, we will see how this can be done later on. Then two parameters are used and two member variables are created and defined. They are called name and interpreted. A member variable is a variable that is defined for the class. So its scope is not global, it is used only for this class. And you refer to these member variables by writing self, dot, and then the name of the member variable. Now let's work with this language. You can do this by creating a so-called instance of this language. This is the variable language, and then we write equals, then the name of the class, and then the two parameters. You don't use this self parameter, that's an automatism. You just use the parameters after the self parameter. And this is the name in this case, and the flag interpreted. I created a C# language now with the name C# and interpreted to false, because it is a compiled language. Okay, now we can access this member variable name and interpret it. Because it is a default that the member variables are public, this means I can access them from outside of the class and also change them, change the values for this name. But perhaps I don't want this, I want them to be private. This means I can only change them inside of my class, and I need functions, or as we learned, methods, to get or to set them from outside of the class. When I write two underlines before this name and interpreted, these member variables are not public anymore, they are private, and I have to write methods to get and to set the values of these. So I define a new function, a new method called getName, and return the private variable self dot underscore underscore name. And from outside, now I have the possibility again to get this name, but I can't set it anymore because there is no set method for this. If I want to set it, I have to write a setName method. Now let's do this. And in this set method, we can include checks. Perhaps I want to check if the name that I give to this set function doesn't equal to the name of the member variable underscore underscore name. And only in this case, I want to change the name. Of course, I have to define the parameter. Here it is. Here's the check. And now I only set the name if it isn't equal to the member variable. So when using public member variables, then everybody has access to it. But when defining methods like this for it, you have more control over your member variables. Okay, that's nice. That's our first class, our first object we created. We can set the name, get the name, print it out. Great. But now let's comment out the setter, the set method for the name, because usually programming language has a name one time and you don't change it. So let's comment this out. Okay, but I want to have a get method to check if the language is interpreted or not. And so I define a method called isInterpreted. You see each method has this self parameter, which indicates that this is a function which acts as method for this class. And this one just returns the interpreted member variable, and I will define a new method called getDescription. And this description returns the name of the language, the member variable underscore name, and then I concatenate this with the result of a condition. I check if the language is interpreted, and if this is the case, I concatenate the result variable here I defined with an interpreted language, with this string, and if not, I will add the sentence that this is a compiled language. Okay, and now I can use this getDescription method. Obviously something is missing, and what is missing? Of course, we have to return the result. This is a function that should return a result. And now this should work. C# is a compiled language. Okay, this is great, but it is not very good that we have to create a language and define from the outside that this language is C# and that it is interpreted. The knowledge about this should be kept inside the class. And here is where inheritance comes into play. Now we define a new class for the language C#, and this new class has a parent class, and this parent class is language. Okay, it derives from the class language. It has an own constructor in it, and in this constructor we call the constructor of the language class, and here we have the knowledge kept inside of the C# class that the name is C#, and it is not an interpreted language. We give this to the parent class. That's it. Now we have a C# class, and now we can continue to add more languages like Python, which also has the parent class language. Again, we define the init method, and this time I call language init with the name Python, and interpreted is true. And the same we can do now for another language called PHP. We can just copy and paste this and use different parameters. Call this class PHP, the name also, and it is also interpreted. And now we have 3 classes that we can use like this. We create an instance, C# equals C#, that's all. And this class has the knowledge about the description, the name, if it is interpreted or not, and we can print this out. We can use this as an own instance. The same with Python. We create a Python instance and print out Python getDescription. Now let's run this. And here we go. C# is a compiled language, Python is an interpreted language. This is the first statement. Let's remove this, and now we only use our 2 instances for the C# class and the Python class. So this was an introduction to classes with Python. I really hope you like it and you learned something. And please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Here's the link. And it would also be really cool if you could support me on my Patreon, so that I have more time to create tutorials like this. Thanks a lot for watching, guys, and see you soon here on my channel.